The stage lights glared brightly, casting long shadows across the floor as a small figure stepped forward. He was just a boy, no older than 12, but life had already carved lines of hardship into his face. His clothes hung loosely from his thin frame, patched and worn, the kind that told silent stories of nights spent on sidewalks and days scavenging for food. The audience shifted uneasily, unsure of what to expect. He looked nervous, clutching the microphone like it was both his shield and his only hope. When the judges asked his name, his voice trembled, soft but steady. He told them he was from the streets of Manila, that he sang not for fame or glory, but because singing helped him survive. "I sing on the streets, to eat," he confessed, his eyes lowering as if ashamed of the truth. A ripple of emotion passed through the room. The audience gasped, and one judge blinked back sudden tears, struck by the raw honesty of his words. There was a silence, heavy and profound, as if the whole theater was holding its breath. For the first time, the boy wasn't invisible. For the first time, people weren't just passing him by. He stood in the center of the stage, fragile, vulnerable, yet filled with a quiet courage. No one knew what would happen when he began to sing, but in that moment, the boy's presence alone had already touched their hearts. The music began, soft and uncertain at first, like a whisper daring to rise against silence. The boy closed his eyes, and in that instant, something shifted. His small body straightened, and the trembling in his hands faded as if the melody itself gave him strength. Then, the first note poured out. It wasn't just a sound, it was a soul being revealed. His voice carried a raw, aching beauty that silenced the entire arena. Every note held the weight of his struggles, nights of hunger, the cold of sleeping under bridges, the loneliness of being unseen. Yet within that sorrow, there was light, an unbreakable hope that soared higher with every verse. The audience leaned in, many clutching their chests, stunned by the contrast between the fragile boy they had seen moments earlier and the powerhouse of emotion before them now. His voice cracked once, not from weakness, but from feeling too much, and that imperfection made it even more real. A mother in the crowd wiped her eyes, whispering to her child, "Listen to him, he's singing his life." On stage, the boy sang not as if he were performing, but as if he were begging the world to finally hear him. By the time he reached the chorus, disbelief had melted into awe. The judges sat frozen, their pens forgotten, their eyes glistening. The boy wasn't just singing, he was breaking chains, one note at a time, transforming pain into something beautiful, unforgettable. As the boy's voice soared into the chorus, the atmosphere in the hall completely transformed. What began as hesitant curiosity had now become collective awe. One judge pressed her hand to her chest, her eyes brimming with tears. Another leaned forward, whispering to himself, "This isn't just talent, this is a miracle." The camera panned across the audience, grown men wiping their eyes, teenagers frozen in silence, mothers hugging their children tightly as if to remind themselves of the boy's fragility. His song carried them all into his world. The hunger, the nights of loneliness, the hope that somehow tomorrow might be better. By the time he reached the second verse, the judges could no longer hold back their emotions. One covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking as tears streamed freely. The boy, unaware of the waves he was creating, sang with eyes closed, as though he was praying through every note. Then came the bridge, a soaring, heartbreaking cry that made the entire crowd rise to their feet. Thunderous applause erupted mid-song, yet he kept singing, pouring out the last fragments of his soul as though this was his only chance to be heard. When the final note lingered in the air, the room exploded into a standing ovation. The boy opened his eyes in shock, his chest heaving, as if waking from a dream. For the first time, he wasn't just a street singer. He was an artist who had made the whole world feel. The boy lowered the microphone slowly, his head bowed, as if he couldn't quite believe the ocean of applause thundering around him. He gave a shy smile, then glanced toward the side of the stage, ready to walk away. To him, this moment already felt like a dream, too big, too impossible to last. But just as he turned, one judge slammed their hand down with force. Bam! The sound echoed, followed by a burst of golden light. In an instant, the auditorium erupted in screams of joy as the golden buzzer lit up and confetti rained down like stars falling from heaven. The boy froze, his small hands covering his face, shaking with disbelief. Tears spilled down his cheeks, glitter mixing with them as he looked up, overwhelmed. He wasn't just clapped for, he was chosen. His life had changed in a single, unimaginable heartbeat. One of the judges stood, tears streaming, and ran toward him. Kneeling beside the boy, she wrapped him in a hug and whispered, "You'll never be alone again. The world sees you now." The crowd roared louder, chanting his name, stamping their feet until the ground itself seemed to shake. On stage, the boy finally let go. He cried, not from sadness, but from the release of years of being unseen, unheard, unloved. And as the golden confetti swirled around him, he realized, this was the beginning of a new life. A miracle, born from one song. The golden confetti still floated through the air like tiny miracles refusing to fade. The boy wiped his eyes with trembling hands, glancing around as if he might wake up at any moment and find himself back on the cold streets of Manila. But this time, the dream was real. He stepped forward again, the microphone clutched against his chest. His voice quivered, but it was not from fear, it was gratitude overflowing. Thank you for believing in me," he whispered, and his words carried through the vast auditorium, touching every heart like a sacred promise. The audience chanted his name in unison, their voices a thunderous wave of love and encouragement. In their eyes, he was no longer a homeless boy begging for coins. He was a shining symbol of resilience, of what the human spirit can endure and still rise. One judge leaned into the microphone, her voice breaking as she said, "You've reminded us all that dreams have no boundaries, no address. And talent, real soul, can come from anywhere." The boy smiled through his tears, raising his small hands as though embracing the entire crowd. For the first time in his life, he felt seen, valued, cherished. As the lights dimmed and the ovation thundered on, he understood a simple truth. His story wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about hope. Hope that no matter where you come from, your voice, your soul, can change the world.